Hi, students. This is Heather. I wanted to go over the elementary school interview paper. So, with this paper, it's very similar to your family interview paper, especially regarding like the points in the point system. So, it is worth 100 points. You do have to interview a teacher that is either in transitional kinder, aka TK, up to fifth grade. Sixth grade really wouldn't work for this because most sixth grade teachers are now moving forward to doing more, almost similar to like a middle school, junior high program. So I would prefer not to have the sixth grade, but if you really need it, we'll work it out. So with this, it can't be a teacher that's a preschool teacher, infant toddler teacher, or an after-school teacher, or just a teacher assistant. I need a head teacher. I need someone that's in elementary school because that's going to be going towards the questions. Now, with this, just remember that you can change the teacher's name, especially if they ask. I don't mind. However you conduct the interview is up to you. I know right now we're going through the coronavirus, so no face-to-face, please. But what you can do is email the questions. You can do Skype, you can do FaceTime, you can do Zoom, you can even do social media. I'm not really in particular about that part, just as long as you're getting the questions answered. I even had a first grade teacher that's a friend respond to the questions if someone really needs it. So just reach out to me. So what we're really going to be doing is very similar to the family interview. So with this, instead of asking the family questions, you're going to be asking the teacher questions. Now, due to even before Corona, the new systems of not really letting people come in and observe the class and things like that without going through the proper channels of being live scanned and taking their volunteer orientation and all that, we're no longer going to really require to observe, but you can ask the questions. So of course, observation would always be better, but we really are having a hard time with doing that. So we are going to be very open to doing that. So here are some of the questions. Please note in the responses that I got from my first grade teacher friend, some of them could have more detail. Details would be great. With that also being said, some of the questions were not on hers. Based on what her answers are that are provided, if you're going to use that, you're going to have to use some kind of conclusions on some of these other questions, and I'll kind of point those out to make sense. So like your first questions, how much participation do they have from the parents? Do they encourage this? What are ways families that can be involved in the school? So maybe they have a PTA, parent organization, maybe they can volunteer, maybe they can help out like at dances, maybe they can cut out, you know, circles. I don't know exactly what the school will have, but it's up to you to kind of ask them. How much is parent collaboration? What is the value of parent collaboration? That's a huge one. What is the negatives about parent participation? And for the most part, there's really no negatives, but there can be like some parents that might overstep. There can be sometimes parents might kind of look, give their kid the look, or kind of discipline their kids or talk to their kids in front of everyone else, or try to discipline other people's kids. It's really bad. So just kind of know there can be some negatives, or they try to take over the class. That's not too fun either. Also, how does this help the child's developmental needs? How do they support and empower families? So give some specific examples. How does the family, school, and community work together and support the children? What are the linkage that's influential schools' ability to socialize? What do you think the influences are on socialization? And then like the 11th question, you're going to kind of have to respond to that. And then we're going to move into what used to be the observation, but now we'll just kind of ask the teachers, what is their interactions with male and females? Many teachers will think that they don't really have any biases, so that would have been nice to do the observation and see, but sometimes it might be something very small. Maybe they get down very low and very close and soft, like very soft spoken to talk to a female child, or maybe they interact with the males differently. Some teachers do, some teachers don't. So whatever their responses are, we'll go with it. Really talk about their peer interactions. So how do the girl and boys interact? Do the girls mostly play with the girls? Do the boys mostly play with boys? Is it mixed age? And a lot of times that's going to be dictated to the age the teacher is in the classroom with. So our younger kids typically intermingle a little bit more. As they get older, they start separating a little bit. What are there any differences that they observe? Kind of give some details on that. What you guys are going to be answering, not the teachers, is does this reflect societal expectations? So remember, gender is a social construct. We do have social expectations on how children are supposed to behave. So are you seeing that based on what the teacher is telling you? Is that connected? Any positive negatives, you're going to be interacting with that. So that's kind of your questions. So there's not as many questions as the family interview, but please don't underestimate, and please do not give me question and answer. You can streamline this. You can make it in a flow of a paragraph, just going in this order of the questions, but you do need details. I want specifics. If you need to ask them a more specific questions to get more answers, that would be great. Now, the next part is that interview part is worth 35 points. Now, the analysis section is also worth 35 points. So you can't just, teeter out, which a lot of students do. So don't try to do this in one day. It might be a little overwhelming for you. So the first part is interrelationships of child, family, and community. So I want at least 3 examples of this. So maybe you can say the child and the school. So maybe the child goes to some prestigious school and they're receiving a lot of assistance at the school, like speech services, RSP services. Maybe they get free tutoring. Maybe they have free after-school programming. It just kind of depends on what the answers are and kind of what the teacher says. You can also connect it to child and parent and teacher interactions. So maybe if the parent's really involved at the school, meaning they're on the PTA, or if the parents are participating in the classroom, that's all connected there. Maybe the school participates with the community in some type of way, like the community donates, maybe businesses donate to the school, maybe they help, with the local churches. I don't know exactly what school you're going to interview, so that's going to be different for everyone, but I'm looking for at least 3 examples on the interrelationship of our social agents that we've been talking in our class. Now, the next part where students often start not giving me as much as I need, you are going to be discussing those 3 theories again. So Erikson, Maslow, and Bronfenbrenner. Within those 3 theories, they need to have their own separate paragraphs. So you're at least doing an in-depth paragraph on each. So you need to kind of define Erikson. You need to talk about the stages, especially the first 3, because that's going to be beneficial. You're also going to be defining it. You're going to give some examples. You're going to explain, but I want specific connections to the interview. So, I want to connect to what the teacher's saying, what can you see? Then you can go in any order of these theories, I don't mind. And then you can go into Maslow. I want you to talk about the hierarchy of needs. I want you to define it. I want you to tell me what are the, 5 levels. I want you to kind of explain it. I want you to connect it to your interview. So just like the family interview, you're connecting to the family. On this one, you're actually connecting to the teacher's interview. Then you have Bronfenbrenner. I want you to discuss Bronfenbrenner. I want you to define it. I want you to explain all the levels to Bronfenbrenner, and I want you to connect it to your interview. So that within itself are 5 points apiece. So the interrelationship that I went over at the first part of the analysis is worth 5 points. Now, each theory is also worth 5 points. Then you're going to talk about the positive and negatives. So I want 3 examples. It can be all positive, it can be all negative, it can be a combination, but I at least want 3 examples of this. Now, these examples need to be specific to the interview. You need to really explain it. Don't give me vague things. Don't just give me a list. I really want you to explain why it's positive or why it's negative. So really give me details. Within that, I'm looking for 3. If you don't have 3, I'm deducting points. So that is worth 7.5 points. So that's a lot of points. The next part is talking about the strategies. So kind of how would you empower the families or the teachers or the children that are involved with this school or teacher's classroom that you interviewed. So with this, I want 3 specific strategies. I want them to connect to this teacher. Maybe this teacher is amazing. A lot of teachers are. So maybe you're going to talk about continue to do something because they did it so good, but I want you to explain. Maybe one strategy, maybe they don't really have a lot of parent volunteers. Maybe you're going to come up with a strategy to help them to get parents to volunteer in the class. So you can kind of work whatever 3 strategies you want, but you need to explain it. I'll go with you as long as you're explaining it and you have 3. That's also worth 7.5 points. So that is our analysis section. Then the last part is our conclusion. So our conclusion, I really want to make students understand you are talking about 4 significant concepts that you've learned due to this assignment. However, I don't really want in general things. I don't want vague things. I do not want a list. I want you to explain the concept that you learn. So maybe you learn from this assignment how important parents volunteer work is because it helped relieve the teacher of doing certain tasks to help manage all the center times. Just kind of depends on what your teacher says, and how important it is to the child, because I know with my own children, when I volunteer in their class, they're super ecstatic and they love when I'm in there. I have to remind them, I am here to help everyone, not just mommy right now. But if I ever miss a day due to like a meeting or something, my kids are super upset with me. So you can connect it on any type of variable in here, like what did you learn? What did you learn about this assignment? I want 4. So if you don't have 4, points are coming off. That is actually worth 4 points. Now the next part is talking about your action plan. So your action plan is very important. So your action plan can be you as a future educator. It can be you as a future parent. I'll kind of go with you. I don't mind which way you're going to go. With this action plan, I want 3 specific goals that you're setting for yourself that you'll do in the future. Am I coming with a clipboard, making sure you're doing this goal? No. It is hypothetical, of course. However, you need to explain it. So I don't want just a list. So maybe you're going to say that you're going to volunteer in your kid's classroom in the future. And tell me why it's important. Maybe you, as an educator, are really going to try to get as many parents to volunteer in your class. Give me some examples how you would do that. So I really want 3 specific ones. You need to, explain it a little bit. I want 3. So if you don't have 3, I'm deducting points. Just for that, it's worth 4 points. And of course, then I'm going to be doing quality of writing. So were there any errors? Were there any run-ons? Did you cite an APA? Because that's another part of this paper. You have to cite at least 3 to 5 times, at least, if not more. So with these cites, it needs to be an APA. Citing in the paper is worth 15 points on its own. So that's a lot. That's our tech support. You can cite textbook, you can cite PowerPoint, whichever one works best for you, that's fine. Like when we're talking about Maslow, the book doesn't have as much on Maslow, so maybe you're going to be pulling from the PowerPoint. That's chapter 2. So I want details in there. Now remember, when you're citing information, you have to not have the information connected to what the teacher said, or maybe some of your thoughts. A cite is something that's taken from the textbook or from the PowerPoint. You can either do a direct cite, which is the one that you're going to have your parentheses around and you're taking it verbatim, word by word from the textbook or the PowerPoint, or you can do a paraphrase. Now, with citing, this really should be when you are defining terms, if you have an example straight from the book or the PowerPoint that you want to include. It's really more for that. So in the interview section, you might be defining a term, but you're really not going to be citing as much because it's more what the teacher is saying from your interview. So that is worth 15 points. So that's a lot of points. Now, with the quality of writing part, I'm going to be looking at, do you have an APA title page? Are you using citing an APA? Are you having little to minimum errors, typos, things like that? Do you have an APA reference page? So a reference page is different from your citing. A reference page is at the end. It's kind of like a works cited if you think about MLA. Remember, not doing MLA, we're doing APA. So it's typically going to be the textbook or the PowerPoint. For these assignments, you really do not need outside sources. Many times students that use an outside source, that's where some of the APA issues come in because they're not citing correctly or they're not referencing correctly. So those are kind of the things I'm looking for. So once again, it's very, very similar to the family interview. So I hope that helped, and I don't have a sample on this paper yet. Hopefully I will in the future and I'll be able to add that, but you can kind of look at the family interview sample that I provided. So it kind of gives you some structure. I really do suggest that students use headers because headers really help you. What is considered a header? Like if I came down to the analysis, I might put analysis as a header. And then I might even say interrelationships with child, family, community, all those social agents that I'm using. And then I might even do like theory. And then I might even say like Erickson, Maslow, things like that. It helps me know where you're at. It probably will help you stay on track of answering all the questions too. So I hope this video helped.